we're looking. Okay, I'll go ahead and call this emergency meeting of the Tennessee Opioid Abatement Council to order. Thanks everyone for joining us here on a Monday night. We appreciate you taking time out of your evening with us. We have had a pre-meeting and tried to, through Mary and our staff, tried to prep everybody for what we have coming up so we can try to make efficient use of our time. And I'm looking forward to it. And I want to tell you all again, as I always do, I'm so appreciative of the work that you do and for the help that this council has provided hurting Tennesseans. I'm Dr. Stephen Lloyd. I'm the chair of the Opioid Abatement Council for now. We will wait and see what our reappointments look like, but it's been an honor to be, to be the chair of this council for the time that I have been. And Mary, do we want to just have everybody introduce themselves who are part of the council? And I know we've got other people on that are in listening mode, and we'll have a time for public comment at the end.
I'd like to do a roll call.
Okay, absolutely. So if you would proceed with the roll call.
All right, Armando Fontes.
Present.
Brian Buck.
Here.
Casey Cox. Sharm Allen. Clay Jackson. Karen Pershing. Here. Ken Moore.
Present.
Lisa Tipton.
Here.
Mike Flynn.
Here.
Shane Sexton.
Here.
Stephanie Vanterpool.
Here.
Steve Lloyd.
Here.
Tim Fournette.
Here.
Tommy Farmer.
Here.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Here.
And it does seem like we do have a quorum.
All right. Thanks, Mary. That's wonderful.
All
right,
Hey, Mary, Dr. Lloyd.
Yes.
Right on
Hey,
time.
I'm on here. I'm on here.
No,
I'm ex officio, but after our thing, I think I wanted y'all to know I'm here.
No, we had you right on cue, Marie. So you chimed in. So we got Commissioner Marie Williams, who you just heard, and
Thank you so much.
It's good to have you, Commissioner. Thank you for joining us. And Deputy Commissioner Matt Yancey, is he on?
Don't think so.
Okay, and our Deputy Director, Sean Smith. Sean, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Hey everyone, I'm very happy to be here, my first meeting. Sean Smith, I'm the new Deputy Director, and I'm just looking forward to working with everyone.
It's great to have you, Sean. I've got to meet with Sean a couple of times here recently, and he is a good dude. And so grateful to have you, Sean. And usually, Sean, in these meetings, we try to keep it a business casual. So right now you're shaming the rest of us with that tie. So, but it's okay. It's okay. And then last but not least, our guiding force, JP Urban.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Great to see everyone. I think most of you know me by now, but I'm with the Attorney General's office and doing duty tonight, not only for myself, but Sam Buckley is out on paternity leave, so happy to fill in for anything as needed that Sam would have done. So good to see everybody.
All right. Thanks for being with us, JP, and for everything that you've guided us through to this point. We're very grateful, not the least of which is I'm grateful for the Open Meetings Act and how you have guided us with regards to that. We look not only is it the right thing to do, as I think we all agree on, it makes us look really good too. So I love that. It's a win-win. Mary, do you want to talk about Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sean's first day was going to be our third quarter meeting on September 30th, but we canceled that in light of the damage from Hurricane Helene. But Sean and I have worked together for a number of years, and I am super pleased to have him join us over here at the OAC office. And he's already diving in. He's managing the community grants process and managing Mark, David, and Melissa. So he's just a great partner to have. And I'm thankful that he's here. So y'all will get to know him better over the next few meetings.
Thanks, Mary. Sean, it is great to have you, brother. All right.
Would you like for me to read this or you?
I actually can, believe it or not.
Okay.
We'll check out my public reading skills here and see how they are. We we talked with JP about this, and I think it's one of the things that we haven't done consistently that we need to, which is the necessity of the emergency meeting of this council, as well as having it virtually. So the Opioid Abatement Council meeting is holding this 100% virtual emergency meeting to expedite the planning and design of the community grant applications process to meet the expected task and activities. The OAC finds that these matters to be considered require timely action by the council, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and the participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary.
Great. And then a roll call vote on meeting necessity.
Okay. I'll need a motion as to the necessity of this meeting.
So moved. Moore.
Okay, I got to move by Mayor Moore. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
And I'm not sure who that second was from. I'm usually good at voices, and I missed that one.
I think I got it. Tim got it in there first, I believe. Then
Who was it?
Yes.
Tim Fournette.
All right, second by Dr. Fournette. Is there any discussion? If not, Mary, would you proceed with a roll call vote?
Yes. Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Ron Buck,
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson, Karen Pershing,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yes.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool,
Yes.
Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
All right, and just a quick update or a quick reminder, if you're not on the council or staff, if you could please turn your camera off. Thank you.
So I know that the staff has been very diligent in letting everybody know, basically what we have today or this evening. So on your screen, you'll see, the first things that we need to discuss with regards to the community grant cycle, the update, and then the things that we will need motions on going forward. So Mary, if you want to lead this discussion, we will proceed.
Absolutely. So we've divided the items up between tonight's meeting, the items that we needed to have discussion on, and hopefully some decisions from the council prior to the go live of the community grant cycle 2. And then also some discussion and decisions that we're asking for on the community funding. And then the other items, we will meet on those December 13th at our in-person meeting. So first up is Community Grant Cycle 1, and I'm going to turn this over to Sean Smith to lead these slides.
Thank you, Mary. I just want to provide just a few quick updates regarding the Cycle 1 community grants. Just as a reminder, as you all know, approximately $78 million was awarded for the first year. That's for 114 grants that involves 85 distinct organizations and grantees. For the first 3 years, or over the next 3 years, that's approximately $235 million. And that's involving the grants, whether they're 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year projects. Excuse me. Next slide, please. This slide here just summarizes the contract and invoicing updates or status. I'm happy to report that as of today, we have a total of 74 contracts that are fully executed. I mean, that is really, really good news. And so the remaining contracts we've got a total of 1 that's in the contract that's in process, that's actually been submitted, been packaged, contracts being packaged and pending initial approvals. We have a total of 11 contracts that actually are awaiting the grantee to sign. So the signature page has actually been sent to the grantees, and we're just waiting to get those signature pages back. A total of 5 are pending final approval in Edison. We have a total of 8 grantees that we're actually working to problem solve their contract specific issues. And so and we're actually working as quickly as possible to get those resolved. but 15 contracts are actually with our budget team now pending budget reviews. 69 invoices have been received thus far since July. And of those 69, all 69 invoices have been paid. So as of now, there's 65% of the 114 grants that were awarded have been fully executed. And with the outcomes reporting plan template, 88 grantees have returned those so far. This last slide that I'm going to present here is based on the 69 paid invoices that we've received. As you can see, we've received 2 in August, 39 in September, and 28 in October. So totally of the 69 invoices that have been paid so far, that's in an amount of a little over $1.3 million. And we're definitely making progress. That's all I have.
Any questions from the council? All right.
No, that,
Very good.
guys, thanks so much. You know, Mary and I had to appear before our legislature. Mary a couple of weeks ago. And it's really the work that's been done by the council and by the folks that we brought on board is really, you know, amazing. And these contracts are not easy things to get done and get executed. And Sean, I'm very, you know, I couldn't be more pleased with this as we move forward. So thank everybody for their hard work, because, you know, guys, we have literally built this thing as we've been driving it down the road, and we all realize that. And so thanks for the hard work. And I know that we'll see these numbers continue to climb. And when we see invoices paid, that means that help is in our community. That's how I translate that. And I want to see those numbers continue to go up and up and up as this money gets put into our community to help hurting folks. So thank you guys, Sean.
Absolutely. All right, up next, Community Grant Cycle 2. So that is what we're entering right now. A quick update on the timeline. So we posted the announcement of funding on September 16th. We received many questions from the potential proposers, and we're going to discuss a few of those here in just a few minutes. The office is currently in the process of posting various technical assistance materials. We posted the FAQs, we posted helpful hints, got some really good helpful hints from the council members and the staff here. And tomorrow I'm going to be recording videos on walking folks through the portal. So y'all get to listen to me talk about the portal again this year. So again, we posted the FAQs. So the portal opens up on November 12th and then closes on December 13th. So 2 important dates that are coming up. And this is posted on our website. So updates and reminders, the Opioid Abatement Council is in an open procurement. So just a reminder on that. And as noted in the announcement of funding, the communications must go through the coordinator. And that's me again this year. And this is the email address to contact us. So, and also just a general statement to prevent any conflicts of interest and ensure all information is public. We are not scheduling individual meetings. So all the information that we have that is approved by the council, that is posted on the Opioid Abatement Council website. And so we're going to be having a few more discussions here in a minute. I definitely wanted to draw your attention to the council's website. A shout out to our admin assistant, Debbie. She is really getting in there and organizing our website. You can see these red boxes that she has placed on the community funding webpage that will draw your attention to those helpful pieces of information, the announcement of funding, the FAQs, the helpful hints, and then hopefully on Monday, we will post, or by Monday, we will post the technical assistance videos. And then once the portal is open, there will be a red button that will take you to that portal. So this is the resource page for all information related to Community Grant Cycle 2. Okay, so leading up here to a few discussion items for the council. We did not discuss capital purchases for cycle 2. So we discussed it last year and there was a motion, but we've had some questions on this. So I'm bringing it back to the council for a possible decision here. So last year, the guidance was, the question was, may we submit a proposal for capital projects, including purchasing of real estate infrastructure, buildings, or renovation of buildings with the intent for use of opioid abatement services found in attachment A of the announcement of funding. And the clarification from the council last year was this matter was discussed and voted on at the August 22nd, 2023 council meeting. Yes, proposals for capital projects may be submitted. No more than 8% of the total community grant funding will go towards capital projects. So my question to the council is, does the council wish to offer clarification on capital projects? Maybe or maybe not putting a limit on there, but we're needing some guidance to the proposers around capital projects. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you for discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. And we had a robust discussion on this last year. I know that everybody on this call will remember that. I think we were all pleased that we did throw a number out there at 8%, but we knew that going forward, we had the ability to go up or down on that. So I think that we need a number. I do think those are worthwhile. I do think that we do get some proposals that I do not, me personally, and knowing what I know about building a recovery ecosystem, I think these are needed expenditures, but I want to get a flavor from the council. Does that number need to go up, down, stay the same, and what people's thoughts are? Dr. Fournette.
I'd be in favor of keeping it the same as we had it before. That's my personal opinion. Maybe not be correct, but that's my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Fournette. It says one other person has their hand raised, and I finally found him, Dr. Moore.
Well, I think you clarified it very nicely there when you said that 8% is a nice target, but it does give the council the opportunity if there's something really, really special to go up or down. But let's just keep it at 8, and if it needs adjusting, the council can vote on it.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Moore. And Dr. Moore, would I be out of line of stating that as a motion from you?
Stephanie also has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to jump the gun. Dr. Vanterpool, I would never ignore you. You know that. Chair recognizes Dr. Vanterpool.
Sure. So my concern with the 8% is that we know that these grant amounts are going to be lower this year because the total amount available is only $20 million or so. So I want to make sure that number one, we agree with the 8%, but if 8% is not the number, can we at least put a caveat on the capital improvement project has to be completed with within X number of months? So I think there's potential wiggle room for the percentage, but I think the timing for the capital improvement project should be where it's actionable. I don't want somebody saying they're going to take a 5-year build with this funding, and then it takes 5 years before they're able to use their capital.
Sure, and I definitely see that. And guys, I'm not going to tell you I know everything about this process because I don't. I've learned a ton since we got started, but that part I for sure understand. And so I hear right now that it sounds to me like the temperature of the the council is to keep it at 8%, but with a caveat of completion of the project. So, Dr. Vanterpool, would you like to state that in the form of a motion?
I don't know if I quite have clarity on the 8% because, like I said, 8% of $500,000 is very different from 8% of $2 million for capital improvement. So I would rather just clarify that the timing of the capital improvement project should be within X number of months, but I don't really have the capital experience to say what number of months is reasonable, maybe 8 months of the project of receipt of the funds or something like that. I'm not sure. I'd defer to other council members that might have more experience with direct capital improvement or capital intensive projects to see what their thoughts are.
Right, and I do not have experience with that. WC raised their hand, and I'm not sure who WC
That's
is.
Clay. That's Clay.
Okay, all right. I didn't know you were on there. Dr. Jackson, welcome.
WC Handy. Hey, so the my own clarity, 8% is, we had set that target as the total expenditure for the year, correct? So if we award $20 million, what the 8% is saying is that we won't award 1.7 in capital total. We would award a maximum of 1.6 million out of 20 million. Is that correct?
That's the way I understand it.
Okay. So with respect to Stephanie's question and when the capital money should be allocated and used, I would say 2 years from award. The reason being, some of these things involve, I mean, if you're building a licensed facility, you may be waiting on certificates of occupancy and various Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. It may be through no fault of your own that you can't spend the money. You get a big rain, you can't pour concrete. So I don't think we need to think in the order of months. I think years, but not decades. So I would just say 2 years from the time of award that the capital would be, utilized, or an explanation made to the council. If they send us a one-page letter that says, hey, we were going to build in East Tennessee, the hurricane happened, we're going to have to regroup. That's totally understandable. They're just not sitting on the money on an offshore account.
Right. I appreciate that, Dr. Jackson. I agree. I think that we have to be flexible on that because stuff does happen. And I don't do this, in my own private world, but, some of the folks I do this, and there are a lot of unforeseen things out there. Getting a building permit, for instance, boy, that is highly dependent upon the city you're in and how long it can take. So it sounds like the flavor is to hold on to the 8%, and then with the caveat that we give 2 years for the project to be completed, and if not, then we need an explanation. But we'll entertain a motion here in a second. But Dr. Fournette has his hand raised. Dr. Fournette.
So are all those funds going to be distributed in one lump sum, or are we going to do it in allocations?
So we are paying invoices. We're reimbursing based on invoicing.
Sounds good.
So in listening to the discussion, in taking into account what Dr. Vanterpool said, I haven't heard anybody want to come off of the 8% number. I agree. I think that's reasonable. I'm sorry. Dr. Moore, you have raised your hand again, sir. The chair recognizes you.
With my experience with capital projects, I'd like to see some kind of caveat that says that they have to show progress in starting to spend the money within a year. And I don't have a problem with the 2 years for completion of that capital project, with the caveat that if there's something they run into, they can't get the equipment, they can't do this, an explanation of the council, we would have the ability to extend that period of time.
Thanks, Dr. Moore, and I agree with that as well. So Dr. Moore's addition.
That's a motion on my part.
Okay. All right. So I will try to restate that, Dr. Moore. If you don't want to, would you like to state it yourself?
Sure. That capital projects would be a percentage for capital projects would be set at 8% for the community grant funding, and that the money should be there should be evidence of the money starting to be spent within a year of the executed contract, and that they would have 2 years to complete the project once the project began, but could be extended with a letter of request to the Opioid Abatement Council.
Thanks, Dr. Moore. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Jackson.
Did we have somebody from the OAC office who has control slides to type out the proposal so we can see the exact language?
I'm doing that. Can you see my slide?
No, he cannot. He's driving.
He's driving.
Oh, okay.
Let's read it. I can read it for you, Clay. Let me read it for you.
I can absolutely see it. I see discussion and decision points.
Okay,
Well,
I'm typing
oh my goodness.
on the slide, but yeah, Stephanie can read it.
I'll read it. CP, which stands for capital projects, said that 8% of the total community grant funding will go towards capital projects. There should be evidence of spending the money in a year of it should say within a year of an executed contract. And the money should be used within 2 years of the award, or it could be extended with an explanation made to the council, or actually could be extended by the council with explanation or pending appropriate explanation. Pending appropriate explanation is what I would say. Because it's not an assumption it's going to be extended. Like they can't just assume they'll send an explanation or we'll extend it. You know what I mean?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to offer Dr. Moore a friendly amendment to his motion that the 8% figure would be a maximum of 8%. As currently written, the proposal obligates us to spend 8%. I don't think that's the intent.
So, Dr. Moore, do you accept that amendment that it'd be a maximum of 8%?
Love it.
All right, and I can't remember who seconded this. Who was that?
I think it was
Armando.
Wayne. Oh, my bad.
It was
Sorry.
Armando? Yeah,
All
and
good.
Armando, are you good with that amendment as well?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and an amendment that has been accepted by the two people who put it forward. Is there any further discussion?
Well,
All right,
so
hearing-
do we
I'm
need to
sorry.
put anything in there? We did say that if there was a worthy project that we could bump that 8% up. So, we just need to be aware of that discussion that we had earlier.
Yes, Mary, I guess I agree with Dr. Moore. We did talk about that. What does that need to look like? I mean, does that need to be worded within our motion or,
No.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know.
This is single motion. This is not state law. We can change any of our rules if we want to at any time. We're just making a rule for now. We can't cover every eventuality in a single motion.
Yeah. I appreciate
keep it
the
simple.
explanation, Clay. Yeah, the part I wonder about though is I've seen this numerous times before where the people interpreting it, not being us, interpret it as we can't go over this under any circumstance. So I'd like to know the process by which those things come forward that would be presented back to the council. Mary, what would that look like? I mean, I want to know that myself.
Can I turn that over to JP?
Yes,
Sure.
JP.
Yeah, so my suggestion is that if you end up with a situation where you're considering going over the self-imposed 8% cap, I would just make sure to reference that council decision and say, notwithstanding our 8% general cap, we've decided this project warrants X expenditure on capital projects.
All right. Thank you, JP, and thanks, Dr. Jackson. Any further discussion? All right, Mary, hearing none, can we proceed with the roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Yes, sorry. Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Bron Buck,
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yeah.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool,
Yes.
Steve Floyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
All right, so
Thank
the motion carries. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys.
All right, Mary.
Yes. Let me get back into presentation. Okay, so we have received some questions and Steve also asked for me to review this as well. And this has to do with proposer eligibility. And I've just snipped the slides from the July 31st OAC emergency meeting where we presented these suggestions around proposer eligibility. So that included the scope, addressing Tennessee's opioid epidemic, the strategies, would be open to organizations within Tennessee. There was some specifics around county strategies and collaboration. And then the technical criteria, physical presence in Tennessee, registered with Secretary of State, the recovery housing, the treatment provider, providing treatment, and then if not currently awarded, an OAC 2024 Cycle 1 community grant, meaning that they cannot apply for 2 consecutive cycles. And I'll go over this in more detail, but if they were awarded a Cycle 1 community grant, then they were not going to be eligible to apply for a Cycle 2. And then there was a proposed limit on annual budgets for single project, an annual budget of $1 million, and for multiple proposers, the collaboration, a total annual budget of $3 million. So those were just screenshots of the slides from the July 31st meeting. So this was the motion. Approve the scope of Cycle 2 announcement of funding as presented by the OAC staff, with the exception of the counties of emphasis, be open to change per further discussion of the council. So when we pulled the announcement of funding together, everything was kept except for those counties of emphasis. And so going back to the Cycle 1, if you received a grant in Cycle 1, not being able to apply for Cycle 2. And this was the information that we placed in the announcement of funding. And I added a couple of bullets just so that there was further explanation for clarity. So not be a current recipient of a Tennessee Opioid Abatement Council community grant from Cycle 1. The Opioid Abatement Council does not allow approved grantees to apply for 2 consecutive cycles. If your agency is a grantee from Cycle 1, then your agency may apply during Cycle 3. If your agency applied for Cycle 1 and was not awarded, your agency may apply for Cycle 2. And okay, so I will pause there. Are there any questions around that?
So Mary, I'd like to share with my colleagues why I asked this. And guys, I mean, I am far from perfect. And as I get older, my memory gets a little worse. And I could not remember how this came about. I couldn't remember our specific conversation. There's obviously a lot of things, a lot of moving parts going on. So I asked Mary to go back and look at it, because there's been things before that I didn't think that we properly addressed. And it turns out when we go back and look at the meetings, we actually did. And so that's why I asked for this, and I wanted to open it up for discussion to make sure that all of our council members were aware of this, that we're all on the same page and on board. So that's the reason for this part of the meeting. So does anybody have any comments about this, good, bad, or indifferent?
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on a second. Dr. Jackson, if you hang on one second. Karen Pershing has raised her hand. The chair recognizes Karen.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment on this because I think it's, I missed it. I was one that missed it at this meeting. And so when the announcement came out, I wasn't aware that we had made that decision. But one of the questions I have, again, I think going forward, we need to like tease this out a little bit, because again, I think we have multiple strategies in the remediation list that people can propose, and they may be doing work in multiple areas. And they may have gotten a grant in one area, not gotten a grant in another one. They may have gotten a 1 year and not a 3 year. And so, now that we're doing 18-month cycles, if you only got 1 year, then of course you're not going to be eligible and you'll have a 6-month gap. So again, if we've already voted on this, we need to stick with the plan. But I do think it's something that warrants further discussion as we go forward.
Thanks, Karen. And Dr. Jackson, I'll recognize you in just a second. I want to comment on what Karen just brought up, because I agree with her. We knew when we started this process that there would be things that we would decide that when we look back on, we would likely need to modify to some degree. And I think this is one of them. That remediation list, as you all know, is very intense, right? There's a lot of moving parts to it. And then with the way that we've come out with the grant cycles, I think that we do need to relook at this. After we get through this current cycle. So what I'd request, Mary, is that we look at this, and then we look at the way that we've come around with the grant cycles. I think that we do need to relook at this after we get through this current cycle. So what I'd request, Mary, is that we look at this, and then we look at the way that we've come around with the grant cycles. I think that we do need to relook at this after we get through this current cycle. So what I'd request, Mary, is that we look at this, and then we look at the way that we've come around with the grant cycles. I think that we do need to relook at this after we get through this current cycle. So what I'd request, Mary, is that we look at this, and then we look at the way that we've come around with the grant cycles. I think that we do need to relook at this after we get through this current cycle. So what I'd request, Mary, is that we look at this, and then we look at the way that we've come around with the grant cycles. I think that we do need to relook at this after we get through this current cycle. So what I'd re after we get through our next meeting, that we put this on the agenda item for the first quarter of 2025, so we can readdress it and have it ready to go for grant cycle number 3, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the chair recognizes Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, as stated, as Mary's read it, I have no problem with it for this second cycle. My only concern and what exercised me last time when we looked at the counties of emphasis was I just would argue very strongly that the core metric we need to be looking at just to compare apples to apples is per county. The metric I'd like to see is community grant dollars divided by deaths divided by population. So we get a dollars per death per capita that we have awarded, and basically, what you're going to wind up with, or you could flip it to where it's deaths per capita divided by dollars. And if you get infinity, that means somebody's had a death, and we haven't awarded that county a single dollar. I realize that some of our grants are statewide. I realize some of our grants cover multiple counties, so this is imprecise math. But the only way I know to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, because Knox County has a lot of deaths. It has a lower population than Shelby County. Shelby County has a lot of deaths, but a large population. But if we start looking at how many dollars per county that we've given, it doesn't tell the whole story unless we look at, deaths per capita. So for me, that's the metric we should look at in terms of if we're going to emphasize certain counties, then I think we need to find a single common metric that can provide us the most value. That's the one that I think would. You know this literature much, much better than I, Stephen. So if there's another metric we should look at, that's fine. I just want a smart metric that we can look at if we're going to emphasize one county over another.
Now, thanks, Dr. Jackson. As you know, deciding exactly what you need to look at is really the trick, and sometimes it can be a trick. And I think this is one of the things, Mary, that we need to discuss with SAS at some point. And I appreciate the input from Dr. Jackson. Chair recognizes the commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Hey, I wanted to say, totally agree with what Karen has brought up. I think that's a really, really good catch that she's made. Additionally, what Dr. Jackson has stated related to the deaths per capita, that is something that makes absolute sense to me. I know that Mary and I at one point spoke about that. And if what our council wants to do is make sure that we are allocating the dollars in a way that's getting to where the highest need is, which obviously is where your deaths, absolutely want to just second both what Karen as well as Dr. Jackson have brought up.
Thanks, Commissioner. And it said I had 4 hands up. I'm doing the best I can here, and that's Clay, Karen, and
Tommy.
And Marie.
Tommy Farmer.
Tommy. Yeah, I don't have the great Tommy on my screen, which is on me. So Tommy, the chair recognizes Tommy Farmer.
Yeah, I would just remind, we've also got to factor, I agree with the comments made here, but also that formula is also based on the 35% that's going to those counties as well. We're already considering those deaths on a per capita basis. So it's not just what the Opioid Abatement Committee is going to allocate out in grants. It's also going to be from formula.
Thanks, Tommy. Mary, I'd ask that we go ahead and I'm really interested in this way of looking at it that Clay just described. I mean, for me, this is a question that always comes up, and a lot of times I don't have an answer because I don't think in those terms. Clay is a different bird when it comes to thinking about stuff like this, and I'm a fan of that. So if we could, I'd like to put that out for discussion at our meeting after our December meeting, if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll tee it up with SAS too.
Absolutely. I want to talk with SAS about that because the more I think about it, the more I like it. But Tommy's right. You got to remember that the formula used from the master agreement has taken some of that into account and tried to apply it evenly across the counties. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But I appreciate everybody's input. And I wanted to make sure this matter was cleared up because we've had a few things like this. And guys, I just can't remember everything. And I can't remember exactly what we've done. So that's why we went back and looked at it. So thank you, Mary, for doing that. So let's move on to our next item.
Absolutely. So a couple of, well, actually three additional eligibility questions that have come in from the community, and I'm asking if the council would like to give guidance around this. The first one, this has to do again with cycle 1 versus cycle 2, and then also being in the state and being outside of the state. So the first, excuse me, the first question, may an agency who was awarded a grant in cycle 1 be listed as a collaborating agency on cycle 2 applications, but not listed as the primary applying agency? So as a reminder, we are doing collaboration, but within the Smart Simple portal, there has to be one primary agency that is applying, and then there can be up to 3 collaborating agencies. So the question there is, could a cycle 1 grantee be a collaborating agency? So question, do you want me to read all the questions and then y'all discuss
Let's
them?
let's address them one by one. I'll forget what the
Okay.
question was if
All
we
right.
don't.
Okay. There's the first one.
I have my thoughts on this one, but I'm going to hold them and wait for hands. I think the question is pretty clear. And as Karen stated, you know, a lot of these things, a lot of these remediation interventions are complex. They can have multiple moving parts. And so I think we need to think about that as we answer this question. So I'll wait to see some hands. Kind of unusual for this group to not. Oh, I spoke too soon. I got to find out who it was. I got it. Chair recognizes Mr. Wyckoff, who I always like to recognize, as a matter of fact.
Thank you. What I'm wondering about on this one is, what is the primary applying agency? In other words, are they going to be doing most of the heavy lifting, the management, and most of the project? If that is the case, that's one thing. And that, I think, would keep us from having a situation where someone is becoming a collaborative agency just to get back in the ballgame.
We have not set any parameters. Oh my goodness. Sorry, give me 1 second.
I bet it's her dog. What do you want to bet?
I have a beagle who is elderly, and this is the witching hour. So we haven't set any parameters around like percentage of work around collaboration. I guess it just depends on how they part and parcel the project out. So the answer is there's no details on that.
So I'm afraid, Mr. Wyckoff, we're not going to have an answer for that one. I would hope, you know, and maybe this is me being naive, but you know, I would hope that you know, people wouldn't get into this and use that as a workaround. Although I'm also not naive enough to believe that wouldn't happen. I'm not sure how we prevent it. Just for what it's worth, I do like somebody's ability that was awarded a grant to be a collaborating agency for other things. And I guess I've got Lisa right in the middle of my screen, so that's who I'm thinking about. So, you know, if Lisa's organization got a primary grant at Families Free, and then they were collaborating with a court that wanted to implement some of the principles that Lisa uses at Family Free within their grant process, I would think that would be a really good thing. I mean, one of the things the OAC has looked at is getting agencies to work together in collaboration. And so I think overall this is a good thing. How to prevent what Mr. Wyckoff just brought up, I don't know. And I guess my tendency has always been to believe in the good, but I couldn't believe that I do that because I've been burnt by the bad so many times. But you know, that's my knee jerk to that, is that if they're not the primary agency, that they could be listed as a collaboration because they likely bring an area of expertise to the overall project, which I think would be beneficial. So that's my thoughts.
I tend to agree with that. What I'm worried about, not really worried about, I see that there will be organizations that will be necessary on more than one project. And if that's their expertise would be the reason for it in all probability.
I think if we look at this one, Mary, that be my suggestion that this would be our answer. And I'm not going to speak any further. Karen Pershing has raised her hand, so Chair recognizes Ms. Pershing.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to chime in on this because I think, again, collaboration should be encouraged so that there's not people duplicating efforts. And that's the biggest thing I see in local communities is people each going after grants and doing similar work and not really working together. So I do understand Mr. Wyckoff's concern, which I completely understand and second that. But I also think by just saying they can't because they got money in cycle one, I think maybe cutting our nose off. So I would be comfortable considering allowing around one to be a collaborating partner. Again, we'll be holding accountable the applying agency. And so they're going to be responsible for the fiscal management, for the reporting back to the council. And so that's a heavy lift. And I think they're not going to allow or be in a collaborative relationship with someone and with a partner who isn't going to be consistent and in the work that they're doing. That's my personal opinion.
Thanks, Karen. I would like to think that we could look at it, and as time went on, if we had somebody who had set them up in a puppet regime, we would be able to figure that out. But hopefully that won't happen. So I think the general flavor I get from the council is that we're in agreement that this can happen. And so, Mary, is this something that needs a motion, or is this just feedback from the council? Is that we think this is a good thing, and we're going to let it go forward?
JP, do you have
I'm sorry.
an opinion on this?
Do you have an opinion? Yes, sir. It would be helpful.
Has he turned his camera off?
I don't know. I saw him because his hair is perfect, and so I'm not sure where he went to.
I think he has stepped away for a minute.
Yes.
I mean, it may be. Oh, JP, are you back?
I'm here. Yeah, I stepped away for 2 seconds. My kids were doing something I didn't approve of. Sorry if I missed a question.
Oh, well,
there.
shocker there. Okay.
All right. So we're going through these questions, and Steve asked me if just having an answer is okay, or should we have a motion? I mean, I'm kind of. What would be your opinion?
So, on the first one, it's really about how much binding direction the council wants to give to Mary and staff. If you want to, forbid a cycle one lead to be a collaborator on a cycle two, then you want to make that. If you want to leave it open-ended, I don't think you have to take any vote on anything at this time. So that's in general how I look at these questions.
Good. I like that answer, JP. And so we will, Mary, I think that we can leave it like as stated and not have to entertain a motion and can move on to the second one.
Okay. So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Can I be clear? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just so I know. Okay. The second question is, if the agency is a college, university, or state department who is awarded a grant in cycle one, may a department or division within the agency who was not specifically awarded a grant in cycle one apply for cycle two? Does anybody need an example, or is this pretty clear?
All right. I think it's pretty clear. Does anybody have any thoughts on this one? I have as well, but I will hold them. Chair recognizes Karen Pershing.
Yeah, this one I really struggle with, mainly because we have very large agencies that are doing multiple types of work and have different departments that aren't a college, university, or state department, that we're saying in our previous discussion that if they got a cycle one grant, they're not going to be eligible again until cycle three. So I personally don't feel like college, universities, or state departments should be an exception to the rule than it would be for a larger nonprofit organization or even a large business, private business. So I say no on this based on the previous decisions we made.
And thank you, Karen. So as I hear you, this is about consistency and not separating out a college or university. And I've talked on this council, basically since our inception. I always believe that 15 heads are better than one, and so it's an avenue I did not think about. So thanks for bringing that up, Karen. Anybody else? We generally in agreement about that. Is anybody opposed to that? Because I definitely see where Karen is coming from when I didn't before this discussion started. Dr. Fournette?
So what if they want to be a collaborating agency? And
a different story. Right, so I think that would fit back into the first one, and our staff would have the leeway on that one that we just gave them. All right, Dr. Fournette.
That was an error. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay. I thought maybe you had a second thought. I never have a second thought, but thought maybe you did. So that's fine. Does anybody else have any input? If not, then I think I'm sorry, Dr. Moore.
We have the ultimate decision making whenever we review the applications and whenever we meet. So I don't want us to get too bogged down into minutia.
But I was going to say this goes into the qualification and eligibility. So the staff would not send this one to scoring. So if a proposer does not meet eligibility, we're not sending it to scoring.
It would also decline. It would also defer people from applying if they don't think they meet eligibility. So it's important that we clarify this at the outset, because otherwise we might not get applications that might be very appropriate for the council to review.
Thanks, Dr. Vanterpool.
Thanks for clarification.
Thanks, Dr. Moore. So Mary, it looks like the flavor for this one is no, okay. in interest of keeping things fair and equitable for the organizations that Karen outlined.
Okay, great. So the last question, and I've received this
real
couple
quick, Mary,
of ways.
Mary, sorry to interrupt. Unlike the first one, because this ends up being essentially a prohibition on the screening of applications for grants, I think you probably should take a vote on number 2.
Yes, JP. I was wondering if you were going to chime in because that's and so I appreciate you doing that. So my little man inside of him was right. So this is a different situation than we had in the first because we are imposing a restriction, and as we're in the first one we were not. So if this is the will of the council, I'll need a motion to take this action. Ms. Pershing.
I will do my best to make a motion here. I would like to make a motion that colleges, universities, and state institutions who applied for and received a grant in cycle 1 is not eligible to receive additional grant funding until cycle 3.
All right, thanks, Karen. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I had a second, and I'm sorry I didn't know who that was from. Dr. Moore. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Judge. A second from Judge Sexton. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. Mary, would you proceed with a roll call vote?
I apologize. I couldn't get off mute before the discussion question was asked.
No, I'm sorry.
Um,
No, that's all right. We've got great flexibility. Dr. Vanterpool, chair recognizes you.
I do have a question with regards to divisions of institutions. What I mean by that is if one department of an institution applied and got funding, but a completely different department or division is applying, I don't think we should preclude that division from applying just because the institution as a whole got funded, because they are managed. If you all are familiar with if we're familiar with, thanks for turning it off. If we're familiar with institutional kind of distribution of funding, they are managed by different divisions. So that would, in the same, it would preclude potentially other organizations or other groups from applying. And I don't know if that's what we actually intend. So I'd just like to have additional discussion on that, please.
Okay, let me get the other two, and we'll circle back to that. Stephanie, Dr. Fournette.
Well, it just concerned me because I think Rose got an application cycle 1, and that's in a greatly needed area. And I understand the need for restricting it, but it just concerns me that would exclude some of the places in Shelby County that have probably the best option to give treatment.
Thanks, Dr. Fournette. Dr. Jackson.
Valid points on both sides. I just wanted to mention I'm going to recuse myself from this vote because I'm employed by the University of Tennessee. Well, I mean, I'm not a W-2, but I do have an academic appointment, so I believe I should recuse myself from this vote.
Dr. Fournette.
Oh, I'm good. Sorry.
Did you misfire again, Dr. Fournette?
Yes, I did.
It's okay. All right, we'll forgive you, and no shame involved. So I think that we need to circle back to the point Stephanie brought up about different divisions within those institutions. Is there any thought about around that, Karen? What are your thoughts on that, since this is your motion?
Yeah, thank you. I still feel like there are larger other entities that aren't colleges, universities, or state departments that could also fall into this. So that's where my concern is that, again, we really want to encourage collaboration, right? There needs to be collaboration within those larger institutions. So if one department's going to apply for a grant, they kind of need to vet that within that institution between departments, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Dr. Vanterpool.
What if, and I'm with Clay, where I'm also obviously employed by the University of Tennessee Graduate School of Medicine and UT Medical Center. But can we go back to the motion real quick, to the eligibility criteria?
Mm-hmm. So we're discussing.
Slide, Mary.
Which
can
slide?
We put that one? Yes. Can we?
Okay.
Could we just add the specificity of college or university department or state department? So for example, that would allow other departments within the same university that have not previously received funding to potentially apply. And I think that and then to answer Karen's concern, I'm not sure. Karen, how does this answer? Is this a motion that you're putting forth to kind of level the playing field? Or is this one where you're concerned that other larger organizations may have unfair disadvantage if colleges and universities could apply multiple times?
Yeah, I think it's more of an equity thing for me, because colleges, universities, and state institutions are just some of our partners, but they're not all of them. And so you've got larger institutions that don't fall into these categories, that have multiple departments and do lots of different work within the remediation strategies. And so they've already gotten one grant, but they could use additional funding in other areas. And they're divided up and managed in, by different directors, even in those other larger nonprofits or for-profit entities. So I guess I just don't understand why just this specific group got pulled out of that waiving, having to wait. Again, this won't preclude them from collaborative proposals and having another institution that didn't get cycle one to partner with them. So they could still apply, but just not as a lead agency.
So I have another clarifying question. Are you in favor of or against this motion right now? I'm not saying for you to vote. I'm just trying to make sure, is this your motion or was this a motion that we were reading and discussing and this was not one that you're putting forth?
No, this was
Yeah.
my motion.
Okay.
Yes.
It's Ms. Pershing's motion, Dr. Vanderpool.
Yes.
I do have a question. If you have say the Tennessee Department of Mental Health, they've applied for a grant in Memphis. By the wording of this and looking at it, and they receive a grant in the first cycle, well, then you have another area of the Department of Mental Health which falls under that same umbrella that's in Knoxville. Well, that would make them ineligible because they fall under the same umbrella. And so I think it's going to become too restrictive if you start doing. And I think that's what Dr. Vanderpool's kind of was leading to. If you start restricting, you're going to start restricting all the way across the entire state for totally different programs just because they are affiliated under one umbrella.
Mr. Wyckoff, I've got multiple. Basically, everybody has their hand raised right now. So hang on. Chair recognizes Wayne Wyckoff.
It seems to me that we had colleges, universities, divisions or departments in there. I think that might be very helpful to leave the word departments in there, because then you could have, say, an ETSU getting multiple grants from different departments for what they're trying to do. And in fact, I think we've done that already.
Yeah, I mistakenly put departments in there. I thought that's what was happening, but this is Karen's motion. So I'm not the Robert's Rules of Order, but I think we'd have to get an amendment to the motion.
But we would.
I'm not Robert's Rules, but I've read them. We did it.
We would need an amendment, but we'll get to that. I want to continue our discussion. Chair recognizes Lisa Tipton.
Okay, thanks. I think that I would just kind of in the spirit of what Karen's amendment has proposed, we aren't saying that they can't be a collaborator. It's just that they would not continue over and over and over again to be a lead agency for the sake of equity, because there's a lot of grants that are submitted that may not have a professional, may not have all these different divisions. And I feel like just voicing some agreement that they would not get special consideration.
A multifaceted nonprofit, some other kind of a private company, that they would just be able to be a collaborator, but they would choose wisely as to what they were going to go after to be their main thing.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. Dr. Jackson.
I think I accidentally left my hand up. There's pros and cons to it. There's pros and cons to it. As long as we let people collaborate, I'm okay. I do share the concern Stephanie's concerned that if you say university is a big outfit. I mean, does that cover the whole University of Tennessee? Is University of Tennessee Medical Center at Knoxville different than UT Health Science Center in Memphis? Is the pediatric department the same as the adult department or an addiction fellowship? UT's a big outfit. So's Vandy. So's Meharry. So I think that we need to be careful here with restrictions. I think if we're going to do it, I think we need to do Stephanie's amendment where it's departments. But again, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote. I don't get paid a dime by UT, but I do have faculty appointments. So it does give the appearance of conflict of interest, although, you know, they don't pay me anything. They just want to take credit for my papers.
Absolutely. Well, as they should, Clay, as you know.
Yeah.
And I'm really struggling here, guys. If you don't put your hand down, then it gives me another signal that you have your hand up. So, Clay, you have your hand up, and Lisa Tipton, you have your hand up as well. So, Lisa, I'll go back to you. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay, and Lisa put her hand down, and Clay put his hand down. So I think that I'm doing my best, guys, to keep up with this. It's a little bit difficult.
Tommy Farmer.
All right, Chair recognizes Tommy Farmer.
The only thing, and this, I think it's good, healthy discussion that we're talking about this, and there is a lot, and the collaboration between those departments and divisions can be something, but we also have to take into consideration that university being a fiduciary for the grant, and then two, is the motivation. There's other ways for them to benefit. They could benefit by the number of grants that they carry and also the indirect cost that they charge back to a grantee agency. So those can also can be motivators for them to have multiple grants going into the cycle. And I would just say a point of caution there. I agree with the divisions, and the universities can have multiple departments and divisions, and they're going to provide different services, but they can also have multiple reasons to apply.
Thanks, Tommy. All right, Dr. Jackson.
I agree with what Tommy said. You know, guys, I think this is one of those things where we can't get too smart on the front end. We just got to be kind of smart on the back end. I think we don't want to prematurely restrict. You know, you vote out the way you want. I'm not going to vote on this one, but you know, if we're not smart enough to look at it at the end and not grade it strictly off scores, nobody said we got to take the 5 highest scores. We can look at it and say, hey, we gave Vanderbilt a buttload of money last time. Let's give them less money this time and spread the money around to some other counties. We could say we gave UT a bunch of money. We gave Meharry a bunch of. I mean, we can look at it differently each time, and we've got the ability as a council to say, hey, let's spread some money around. I can guarantee you when voting comes around, I'm going to be jumping up and down on the table if only 6% of funds go to West Tennessee, because I've taken all kinds of heat for it. So whatever's from, you know, east of the western branch of the Tennessee River, I'm going to be arguing strongly for West Tennessee to get funds next time. So it doesn't have to be totally on the scoring. We did it that way mostly this first time, but we have the ability on the back end to look at this and say, hey, the last 3 cycles we've given money to University of Left-Handed Leprechauns. Let's give it to somebody else this time. So I think I'm kind of philosophically against premature constriction, and I'm more in favor of being smart when we dole out the money. You know, again, I'm not going to vote on this one for reasons I've already stated twice, but those are my thoughts.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Moore?
Well, I would speak against the motion, and I would need some clarification. It was my understanding from Mary that these applications wouldn't even be considered, if I understood what she said correctly. So I would be in support of something that allowed us to look at those applications and then the body vote whether to reject or accept.
Thanks, Dr. Moore. And I do think your interpretation of what Mary said is correct. Is that right, Mary?
That's right. That's right. We need the eligibility pretty firm on the front end, so we don't send all of these to scoring if they don't meet eligibility.
All right. Chair recognizes Karen Pershing.
I would like to amend my motion and make it based on the discussion of my colleagues here. I don't think we should restrict anyone who applied in cycle 1 to apply in cycle 2, regardless of whether they're colleges, universities, or state institutions, because I think we should consider all proposals.
Okay.
So can somebody help me out with what this motion, Karen, what, can you wordsmith this motion for me?
Karen,
I'm trying
point
to
of order,
think
you do have the right to
how
just
to word
retract.
it.
You do have a right to
Well,
just
I can
retract your motion,
retract
Karen.
this. Yeah, I can retract the motion completely, but I want to go back to making this open for anyone that got funding in cycle one, not just colleges, universities, and state institutions.
Okay, so how would you like to do that? Would you like to do that by amending the motion or rescinding this motion and entertaining another motion?
Yeah, I'd like to rescind this motion and entertain another motion, a new motion, that we not restrict receiving applications for phase two for any organization that applied in phase one.
I need to say something around the operations of this at some point. I don't know what the order is.
Okay. Let's entertain one thing at a time. So let's get the motion down, and then we'll. So the original motion has been rescinded by the person who made the motion. So we've taken care of that. The new motion has been put forth by Ms. Pershing. We need to get the wording of that down, and we'll see if we have a second, and we can discuss that. So the motion on the floor is to not restrict the motion on the floor is to not restrict receiving applications for cycle two for anyone who received a cycle one community grant. Is that correct, Ms. Pershing?
That's correct.
Okay, and do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Second, I'm sorry, I can't see it.
Dr.
Dr. Fournette,
Fournette.
I'm sorry, Tim, I'm struggling to see people. Second by Dr. Fournette. Now we'll open that up for discussion. I'll go back to the people who had their hand raised earlier. I'll start with Judge Sexton.
What is the purpose of adding this? I mean, I guess I'm a little, what does this say that we haven't already said? No restrictions for receiving. It just seems unnecessary. I mean, I think we're learning, and I realize this has been a fruitful discussion, but we're learning how these piggybacks may occur. I don't know what the purpose of the language is. Maybe it's the law coming out. I mean, we tend to, the more we say, the more we restrict. And I just don't know what we're accomplishing with this. And I'm open to learn.
Well, I appreciate that, Judge, and I'll do my best because we had put this restriction in earlier. I mean, this essentially undoes the thing that we did back in July, from what I see. And so we were trying. The motion was that we would restrict certain applications from colleges and universities, but the discussion was around that wouldn't be fair to other organizations that were of ample size that could do a lot of those things that were in a college or university. So that was rescinded. And now Karen has basically put forward a motion that would undo what we did back in July, unless I've misinterpreted this.
Well, you're right. I think that we went down a bit of a rabbit hole tonight. I think this is right. We should not restrict anyone at this point. Let's learn what works and learn what does not work. And
right.
So yeah, I agree. If all we're doing is undoing what was done, then yes, I'm for that.
And I appreciate that, Judge. I think we did go down a rabbit hole, and maybe it's my inexperience of being able to prevent going down a rabbit hole, but I don't know how I would have prevented this one. So right now we have right. We got a motion on the floor, and it's seconded that, and basically what this does is it undoes what we did back in July. And for what it's worth, I like that because I agree with what Judge just said about not restricting it at this point. I think we're too early in the process. And I'm trying to get to everybody who's got their hand raised. And so if I get back to you and you forgot to put your hand down, I apologize, but I'll go to Mr. Wyckoff. Wayne, I can't hear you for one. I don't know if anybody else can.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Could we go ahead and ask everyone in an application to tell us how many grants you have right now that we have funded and how many grants are being applied for in this cycle, and just list them as part of the application process. And I think that might help resolve all of the problems there.
Thanks, Mr. Wyckoff. As I go back to our meeting in March, you know, I think we were acutely aware of that as a council as we looked up on the screen. I remember that day very well. And I think that we, you know, that we knew that we saw how many grants that were funded for East Tennessee State and Middle Tennessee State and Meharry and UT Health Sciences. And so I think that we are aware of that. And I'm not, you know, telling you we can't do that, but I think we need to address the motion on the floor as we have it right now. And Judge Sexton, your hand is up. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
No.
Okay, just forgot to put your hand up. No, it's all good. Thanks, Shane. I'm sorry. Is there any further discussion? Because we have a motion on the floor that has been brought forth and has been seconded. Discussion has been had, and it's basically undoing what we did in July. Is there any further discussion?
I don't know. Again, do you guys want to hear about an operations around this, or do you want to hear about that after you vote?
I think we should hear about the operations now.
Yeah,
Mary.
yeah. I think it's one of those things, Mary, when you bring it up, we got to hear it. So let's hear it.
So I'm just hearing this now. I was not expecting this, and I would need to go back with my staff, but this could potentially delay the portal opening by 2 to 4 months. I'm going to have to revise the announcement of funding, post the announcement of funding. I'm also going to have to revise the Smart Simple portal, and I'm going to have to ask for more money to have the Smart Simple portal updated. So just letting y'all know.
Other than that, this is no problem whatsoever.
Other than that, no problem whatsoever. But I can guarantee you I will not be able to have the portal open by November 12th.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This is Clay again. Before we vote on this, in light of what Mary's saying, I mean, we discussed this a bunch in July in an open meeting, and this cycle's only $20 million. I think we need to let this cycle go through with the rules that we set in July. And one of the complaints we got after the first round, some of you may not have taken heat on it because you're in divisions where there's a lot of money awarded. Some of the heat that we took was, we thought this was going to be different. We thought small people were going to get awarded awards. You gave it out to the same people that always get money. And I think it expands access by awarding to people who didn't get the first award. So I hear what Judge Sexton said. I hear what Ms. Pershing said about, you know, let's get all the applications we can. That sounds good until you have to manage the applications. And Mary's just telling us that we're delay things by 2 to 4 months and have to hire more people. That's more admin costs. And, you know, I'm a budget hawk here. Let's get the money to the people, not the money to managers. And let's don't delay when people are dying by 2 to 4 months. If somebody's got a good application, it'll get to us. And if we're not banning them from the program for the next 16 years, just saying that they're 18 months out, and we'll get their application next time. It gives them more time to work on it. So my view is we need to stick to July and not make a midnight decision here in an emergency meeting that undoes a good discussion in July. Leave it as it is. So because this doesn't specifically call out universities, I will vote on this one. I'm not going to recuse myself because this is a broader consideration that undoes our work in July.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Fournette.
After hearing what Mary had to say operationally, can I rescind my second?
You can?
Yes, I want to rescind it.
All right. So I have a motion on the floor right now that currently does not have a second. Dr. Jackson, did you re-raise your hand?
Didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm learning. Do I have a second for the motion on the floor? I now lack one as the motion by Dr. Fournette has been rescinded.
Mr. Chair, can you repeat the motion, or Mary, can we go back to the motion?
Yeah, sorry. Are y'all able, just to check, can y'all see my screen where I've typed the motion? Okay, so there are no restrictions for receiving applications for Cycle 2 for any agency who received a Cycle 1 community grant. That's the current motion.
And that's the motion, Judge Sexton, that is on the floor that currently lacks a second.
And Mary, may I ask a quick point? Can you go up 2 slides to what we originally approved in July, just so we can read the
Yes.
approved proposal eligibility?
Yes. So do you want me to read it, or are you just looking?
I'm just looking, 1 second.
Okay, sure.
Not be a current recipient of, I'm sorry, read out loud. Not approved grantees. Agency. I think the way that this reads leaves it open to interpretation of the council in some ways. So I don't believe we need to change it. I think there's potentially open interpretation. We can go back to the motion that's on the floor, but thank you for providing that for clarification.
Yeah, sure.
All right, thanks, Dr. Vanterpool. I think I have addressed everybody who has or had their hand up, and our current motion on the floor does not have a second. If I do not hear a second, the motion shall die without a second, and we'll go back to our question. So one last chance for anybody to second. Hearing none, the motion fails to get a second and therefore fails overall. So Mary, let's go back to our second question, because that's where we started this. And the question is, if the agency is a college or university or state department who was awarded a grant in Cycle 1, may a department or division within the agency who was not specifically awarded a grant in Cycle 1 apply for Cycle 2? If we say yes, we don't have to do anything. If we say no, we need a motion to iterate what we just stated. And that's what sent us on the path that we just went down. Dr. Moore.
I move that this be sent for study for the next 4 months with staff.
All right. I have a motion from Dr. Moore that this question be sent for study for a minimum of 4 months.
That will delay the portal opening again, just so everybody knows.
Let me ask for some clarification, because the intention is not to delay opening the portal, but to allow time for further review of the issue by staff and bring back other comments and recommendations.
So we would allow these, I'm sorry, I know this may be, just tell me to be quiet if I need to be. I'm just needing some direction. We would open up and have everybody apply, but we wouldn't know if they would be eligible to be scored. So we'd get their application, but we may or may not score it.
Does that delay opening the portal?
It does. It doesn't. You're right.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is we need to move forward. We need to move forward, and I don't want us doing anything that's delaying us getting money out the door and looking at the grants on the current schedule. So if my motion addresses that and we can move forward without delaying things, otherwise I would retract my motion.
Yeah, I think Dr. Moore, from the answer we just got from Mary, this does not delay us opening the portal. And she stated that we would accept the applications. We just may or may not score them based on the criteria that we're currently under. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. I have another person who raised their hand, but it doesn't tell me who did it this time. So
Tommy Farmer.
Okay. Chair recognizes Tommy Farmer.
Yeah, I see that would make it move forward. I just don't know that that's necessarily fair, that we're going to open them up to allow them to apply, and then we're not going to grade their application. I I wouldn't support that side. I'd go back to original. Let's not delay it. And we've already discussed this at length at the last meeting back in July. And if we're going to change this, we can always come back after this cycle that we've already put things into motion this year.
All right, thanks, Tommy. And I'm going to go ahead and hold discussion on that because right now I just have a motion on the floor that I'll need a second, and then we can move into discussion. Do I have a second on the motion on the floor, which is question number 2, be sent for study by the OAC staff for the next 4 months? Do I have a second on that? I'll give it the old minister, speak now or forever hold your peace. I do not hear a second, so the motion on the floor fails. Now, going back to what Mr. Farmer just said, Tommy, I appreciate the comment there. Dr. Jackson, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just took it down because the motion failed. I'm completely with Tommy on this, Kim, with respect to what you said. You don't want delay, but it's not fair to let people spend months and months applying when there's a possibility we're not going to score them at all. This is an open meeting. Everybody can go back to this tonight and say you knew you weren't going to score. There's a possibility you weren't going to score my application. I spent $20,000 on a grant writer, and you didn't even intend to score it. If we're going to restrict people, we got to let them know on the front end. So we've discussed this in July. We had a deliberate discussion. We made a decision. Stick to it. Change it in round 3 if we don't like it. That's my opinion.
All right, thanks.
And that's what we just did. That's what we just did, if I understand it, Mr. Chairman.
It is what we just did, and I appreciate the comment. It still leaves us with needing to address issue number 2.
If the agency has a college,
I would be in favor of a yes on number 2, but again, because of my dotted line relationship to UT, I don't think it's appropriate for me to make that motion.
Right.
But I would be in favor of the yes because I take Stephanie's argument that 2 different departments within the university are separable entities that may not have a lot of crosstalk. I appreciate what Ms. Pershing said that they should, but I've been a part of the university environment for 27 years plus, and the left hand and the right hand often doesn't know what they're doing.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Ms. Pershing? Ms. Pershing, you had raised your hand.
Sorry, I had, but I put it back down.
Okay, and somebody named Becca C raised their hand. I'm sorry, I can't recognize Becca C.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm and somebody who's going to be applying, so I don't even know if it's appropriate if I speak up. But
It's not. Becca.
Okay.
It's actually not. You
right,
can
then
speak
I
during public. You can speak during public comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Fontes.
So going back, listening to what everyone has said, I make a motion that that we stay with our approved proposed eligibility that we had originally set. That that already set the standards, and that yes, a different division may apply. It's a different division.
I would second that.
So, all right. So I have a motion and a second that we would stay with our original eligibility. And yes, a different division within the state university or college can apply. Is there any discussion on this? Chair recognizes Brian Buck. Brian?
Yes, sorry. Just going back to the origin of this conversation where there was concerns about larger organizations having multiple departments, just like universities and colleges have. So, I would be concerned about making an exception for universities and colleges that wasn't being made for, larger agencies.
Definitely understand that. Thank you, Mr. Buck. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm sorry. Let me make sure, guys. I promise you, I'm trying my best on the hand raising, and I think I have addressed everyone. Armando, I'm assuming that your hand was just not lowered, and Brian, I'm assuming your hand was just not lowered. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
Mr. Chairman.
Shane Sexton.
Yes, yeah, the chair recognizes Judge Sexton.
Back to the point a moment ago. Never mind. I'm just digesting, so I strike that.
Okay, thanks, Judge Sexton. So we're back to our original, well, back to the motion on the floor that has been seconded. Discussion has been entertained. I do not see any other hands raised. So Mary, if you would proceed with a roll call vote.
Yes, and I'm sorry, who seconded it? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to get that down.
Oh goodness, that was I've thought a few minutes since then. Who did second this? Tommy Farmer.
I got it.
Okay, sorry, thank you. I needed to record that. Okay, thank you. Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
No.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson.
Abstain.
Okay. Karen Pershing,
No.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton. Did Lisa drop off? Oh, I can't hear her. Can somebody hear Lisa? Lisa, I can't hear.
No, she gave a thumbs down, which means no in East
Okay.
Tennessee and everywhere else in the world. So thanks,
All right,
Lisa.
no.
I got you. All right.
All right, Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
No.
Stephanie Vanterpool,
Abstain.
Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
All right, so I've
Right.
got, oh, do you want me to count them?
You don't. I counted them. Motion carries.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all for the discussion. Sorry it was a little convoluted, but that's okay. We got where at least where we could make at least an informed decision. And then last but not least, may a collaborating agency be from outside of Tennessee if the primary agency is located in Tennessee or vice versa? Are there any allowances for an agency who is not located in Tennessee to be an applicant or collaborator if a collaborating agency is located within Tennessee? And if anybody asks me what that means, I'm going to tell you I've got no idea. So you care to explain this one, Mary?
Yes, so we've had some agencies who are not located. We have some agencies that are located here within Tennessee, but they're wanting to be a collaborating agency with an outside of Tennessee agency that will be the primary agency. Or we have some agencies here in Tennessee that will be the primary agency, but they want to collaborate with an outside agency. So somewhere on the application, there will be a non-Tennessee resident agency that will be applying either as the primary or as one of the collaborating agencies. And I've had it both ways. So that's why I'm presenting it like this.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Vanterpool, you have a question?
Because this is community grant funding specifically allocated to Tennessee, I would recommend that the primary agency be located within Tennessee. I'm not opposed to collaborating agencies as in minor partners being from outside of the state, but I really have concerns if the major partner that is going to be receiving the funding is outside of the state of is located or housed outside of the state of Tennessee.
All right, thanks, Dr. Vanterpool. Dr. Jackson?
That's exactly right, Stephanie. Make a motion, I'll second it. Primary must be in Tennessee. Collaborating can be outside Tennessee.
Mary, I couldn't hear that. Mary, could you?
He recommended the motion that the primary agency must be within Tennessee and the collaborating agency may be outside of Tennessee.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor that the primary agency must be in Tennessee and the collaborating agency may be outside of the state of Tennessee. Do I have a second?
Can I add a clarification to the motion? And that all of the services rendered are within the state of Tennessee.
Clay, is that
like
acceptable? Yeah, it's a little out of order, but we'll, for the purposes of moving on, let's do it. Okay, so the primary
accept
agency.
a friendly amendment from my colleague, Dr. Metcalf.
All right, so the primary agency must be in Tennessee. The collaborating agency may be outside of Tennessee, and that all services rendered occur within Tennessee. Is the motion on the floor? Do I have a second?
This is
Second,
Karen.
Moore.
I'll second.
I've got a second by Karen Pershing. Any discussion? Dr. Jackson, your hand is up.
I'm too slow. My hand should be down.
Okay, got you. I'm continued. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Can you proceed with the roll call vote, Mary?
Yes. Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, is she still on?
I don't see her this time.
Okay. Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool,
Yes.
Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
All right, so the motion carries. Thank you all. All right, Mary, the next topic.
Okay. I am going to, so Steve, did you want to give an introduction to this indirect costs? You've asked us to speak on indirect costs, and our accountant number 3 is going to count it. Our accountant
I did.
Okay. Would you like to give an introduction?
Yeah, I did. I did when I thought everything was straightforward. So that's on me. But guys, I did ask for a discussion on indirect costs because I didn't understand them. I've had it brought up to me by multiple people, and I wanted to make sure everybody was now on the same page that I am. So whoever's going to present this, you feel free to proceed.
All right, this is Melissa Gilbert. This is Melissa Gilbert, our accountant 3 fiscal monitor. So I'll turn it over to Melissa. Thank you, Melissa.
Yes. I'll try to keep it short and simple. But basically, indirect costs are costs that are not readily identifiable to any specific program. So a major example is HR, IT, accounting that serve every program in an organization. So that's a way to use an indirect cost percentage to distribute those costs to all of the programs that benefit from that. So right now there's a de minimis rate of 10% that agencies can charge to help offset some of those costs. Some agencies have a higher indirect rate that's approved by a cognizant agency, which is an agency that gives them the most direct federal money. Some things that are not included in indirect is like fundraising, alcohol, lobbying, all of your normal things cannot be included in indirect. So in our budgets, if you want to click over to the next slide, you'll see indirect costs have a separate line. So you can clearly see what's being charged as indirect. And if an expense is in indirect, it cannot be a direct cost. So that is one of the things that we would monitor. So if you were paying an accountant under indirect, you could not also be charging the accountant under salaries, benefits, and taxes. So.
All right, thank you. Can you go back to the previous slide? I always get scared when people start talking Latin to me. So it says this percent can be de minimis. What does that mean?
De minimis is something that they passed probably about 7 or 8 years ago, where instead of you actually applying for a rate and submitting your audit and calculating a rate, most people's was close to 10%. So they're just allowing everybody across the board to charge 10%.
Okay.
You don't
And it
have to
says,
actually go through a process.
so here it says, or a higher percentage approved by a cognizant agency. What is a cognizant agency?
Yeah, so a cognizant agency, so a lot of institutions, higher education, their rates are going to be higher, 30, 40%. So they would go to the agency that gives them the most money and actually submit a indirect cost plan to get that rate approved. And
Okay,
then you
so
would accept it.
What do we currently do with Opioid Abatement Council proposals when it comes to indirect costs? Do we have a de minimis percent, or do we defer to a cognizant agency?
The grantee, when they submit the application, they tell us whether they're using the de minimis or whether they have an approved rate that's higher. And they'll have a certification letter that tells that.
Well, I can tell you what I would do. I would go to the cognizant agency and get a higher percentage.
Yes.
So, all right. So that is the reason for my question, guys. And several people brought it up to me and explained it to me, and I started getting chest pain. So I'd like to open this up for discussion, because I don't like the way any of this sounds personally. One person had their hand up, and I cannot figure out who that is. So I apologize, Judge Sexton. It looks like it's you. It's not Judge Sexton.
Mistake.
I'm sorry. If you're not a member of our council, would you please turn your camera off? Melissa G, you're not a member of our council. Would you please turn your camera off?
Yes, there you go.
Oh, that was who was talking. That Melissa
I'm
was
sorry.
my staff member who was talking.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Melissa. I have been
okay.
frustrated with this this evening. You should see what I have on my screen, and multiple people have done this to me and chimed in who are not members of our council.
Yes.
And I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody else with their hand up. Is there anybody? Am I the only one that has a question about this, or wants to look at this any further? If I am, then we'll move on. Chair recognizes Karen Pershing. Karen, you're muted, I think.
Oh, my apologies. I guess my question would be to Mary. Right now in the application process, is there something that is asking them to submit their cognizant rate and or only use a de minimis 10%? Because I don't believe it's in there.
That's right. We have not set an indirect rate. And Melissa, I don't believe we asked for that information, or do we?
We do ask for that in their risk assessment, and in their application, it tells what they're charging. So the example we gave on the screen, they're using a 10%.
So Karen, when they are applying, they will tell us their indirect rate, but we won't receive any other information until after they have been awarded a grant.
Okay. And my concern about this is, without having some sort of specified guidance in there, I know there was one that I reviewed this last round, and they had a 50% indirect cost rate, which to me, as council members, we should all be concerned about that, because that means whatever their award was, 50% is going to administrative costs and only 50% is going to direct service of the people we're trying to reach. So I think there should be some way that we double check that even before they get an award.
Thanks, Karen. Tommy, I think I saw your hand up as well.
Well, I agree with Karen. The question would be, and that indirect cost can be established by us as well. I mean, we can set a limit on what that indirect cost could be. And a lot of agencies, state agencies and federal agencies do that. They're going to be grantee agencies.
I appreciate that, Tommy. The reason I brought this forward is I learned about indirect cost. I can tell you that I try to be charitable with my money, and I give money to charitable organizations. And if I had a charitable organization that told me that 50% of the money that I gave them was going to go to their administrative fees, I would look for another charitable organization pretty quickly. And so that's why I thought I understood this, and I did. I didn't understand de minimis or a cognitive agency, but I can tell you that if I'm in the money-making business, I would for sure go with the agency that was going to give me the highest of that, and I'm not comfortable with us just accepting that. So I'm not sure what we need to do with this go forward. Me personally, I think we need to set a limit on this. And if you can't do it and you can't meet that limit, then don't apply for the grant, in my opinion. But that's me. Does anybody else have any comments on this or anything they would like to input? Anybody have any suggestions about how we address this moving forward? Dr. Fournette.
Mary, will addressing this delay the grant process?
Most likely. I was sitting here thinking about this. I mean, I would have to update the announcement of funding. If we're going to put a cap on the indirect cost, I would need to get with Smart Simple and make sure that the budget that is submitted would have a cap. I would probably, I don't know if I would have to come back and ask you guys for more money for the Smart Simple project. They did have that variance in there. So I can't tell you definitively tonight, but I have a feeling that that it might. I mean, another idea is y'all can take this into account when scoring, but then we don't have. You could use that as a scoring option, but I don't know. I mean, it's possible. It just depends on how this plays out within Smart Simple. I would need to sit down with Smart Simple, sit down with Melissa, see what y'all's motion is, but I cannot make a definitive yes, this would delay or it would not delay.
All right. Thank you,
Mr.
Mary.
Chairman?
And yes, Dr. Jackson.
So I wouldn't go for at this late stage of the game. I'm against anything that potentially delay getting money in the hands of the people who need to help Tennesseans. Let's don't set a minimum now or a maximum now. Let's don't set a maximum now. But let's do exactly what Mary said. Let's take this into account when we're scoring. We don't have to be asleep at the switch when we score. I would propose, not as a motion, but Mary, tell us the indirect cost on every application, and we can take that into account. If it's 10%, I look favorably on that. If it's 30%, I look unfavorably because that's sloppy business. So I'm not going to vote for them. I'm going to vote for the people that are lean and mean and make most use of our Tennesseans' money.
Thanks, Dr. Jackson. And that was the intent of this. I wanted to educate myself. I wanted all of us to be on the same page. I wasn't looking for a motion. And Dr. Fournette got to be a cardiologist because he's a really smart guy. And that was a great question. And so I agree with it wholeheartedly. I think we all are in agreement that we want to be lean here. And I think we use it as a scoring mechanism. And if we're going to address it with any kind of hard ceilings, that we do that after this current round of funding, because we do not want to delay it. And if anybody believes any different than that, raise your hand. And I don't see any hand raised. So Mary, let's move on to the next topic.
Okay, just are you wanting to press on through the rest of the slides?
All right, I don't see any reason not to right now.
Okay, all right, just checking. Okay, county. So we're switching gears here. We've been talking about the community grants. Thank you guys so much for the direction for that. Now we're moving into county funding. So I'm going to preview some discussion and decision points because I'm going to present a good amount of information, and we also have a guest speaker as well. I've talked to you guys about the SMART initiative. So Jennifer Torville is here. So what I am teeing up here is, will the OAC consider a motion or motions to create a reversion process for the county funding, create an extension process for the county funding, and allow the executive director to engage in contracting negotiations and or execute a contract with Smart Initiative for at least 2 years to assist counties with allocating and spending the funding. So I just wanted you all to have that in your head. I know we discussed that in our one-to-ones, but just as a reminder. So moving into the slides. Just a reminder here, the Opioid Abatement Council is required by law to disperse 35% of these proceeds to the counties that joined the settlement from the Opioid Abatement Fund. And so far we have dispersed $62,498,376. So that's divided between 2023 and 2024. So the total spent, and so they have submitted, the counties have submitted 3 semi-annual reports, and based on those, all of those semi-annual reports, $7.4 million has been spent of those $62 million. So 43% have not allocated any, 54% have allocated some, 3% have allocated all. Then 51% have spent none, 47% have not spent any, and 2% has spent some, and then 2% have spent all. Sorry about that. So 7.4 million have been spent from that 62 million. Sorry. So the little bit of information on the timeline of the county funding. So this is what the council decided. I believe we were in Memphis when we were discussing this back in 2022. The funds received shall be distributed to the county for an initial total time period of 4 years. The county shall obligate all the funds for specific purposes within the initial 2-year time period. At any time during the 4-year time period, the county may spend the funds. At the expiration of the 4-year time period, the unspent funds shall revert back to the state's opioid abatement fund unless the county requests in writing and receives approval from the council for additional time. However, we don't have a process for that, and that's what we're going to discuss. And there was a question from a council member, do we have a legal opportunity to do this? And yes, I got advice from Sam that the council can create this reversion process. And then at the expiration of the 4-year time period or at the end of any extension granted by the council, if any portion of the funds are not expended, the unexpended portion plus any accrued interest shall be returned to the state's opioid abatement fund. So this is all spelled out in the letter of agreement that goes to each of the 95 counties every January, February before we disperse the money. So, support for the counties. And I'm looking here for a proposal to assist the counties. And the OAC office did meet with Tennessee County Services Association and other county association leaders to discuss how the OAC office could collaborate to assist with counties. It was recommended to us for the OAC to contract with the Smart Initiative as they're already serving the counties, and the Smart Initiative funding is ending. So at this time, Jennifer Torville, will you please turn your camera on and unmute yourself, and then I'll turn it over to you and just tell me when you're ready for the next slide.
Sure, you can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so thank you for having us. I know it's been a long day, so I'll be as quick as possible. But Mary asked that we share a little bit about who we are and what we do working with Tennessee counties in regards to their opioid settlement funds. So I wanted to show you first where we fit within the University of Tennessee. We are not academic or research. UT has 3 sectors: research, academics, and outreach. We are part of the outreach arm of the university. We report directly to the system and the president's office. The Institute is not related to any of the other. While we work with the campuses, we are not part of any of the campuses. Under the Institute umbrella, there are 6 agencies that all work with business and government and communities. SMART is new to the Institute for Public Service. We moved over there in 2022 just to work with local government and local communities on substance use programs. If you'll go ahead and advance, Mary. Thank you. So what we did, CTAS and MTAS have been part of the Institute for many, many years. MTAS is 75 years old and CTAS is 60. They were created by Tennessee state law. CTAS is County Technical Assistance Services and MTAS is municipal. They employ consultants of pretty much every kind to work directly with local government. So they have government consultants, fire, criminal justice, jail, finance, legal. And so you can go advance, Mary. So what we did is we used their consulting model and we hired consultants with expertise in substance use. And this is our team. We have them spread out across the state. All of them have many years of experience working in Tennessee in addiction and substance use programs. If you'll go ahead, Mary. So this is the work that we've done over about the last year. The lightest color counties are counties we have not engaged with one-on-one. The lighter blue are counties that we have worked with mostly in person. I think there's 2 or 3 that we only worked with virtually, but we provided education and information to either the mayor or the county commission or some of the elected officials. The levels of education do vary, but all in regards to opioid abatement funds. The darker blue are counties that we have worked with at a little higher level, either helping them with a request for proposals process or reviewing applications that they get for funding, helping them set up their own abatement boards. And then the orange are counties that we've worked with to either implement programs or host events, but really at a much higher level. If you'll go ahead, Mary. This is how we split the state. We split it with the grand divisions. We do have 3 other people that provide support. We are housed in Knoxville, but our 3 consultants are spread out across the state. If you'll go ahead, Mary. Go to the next. There we go. Mary wanted me to just share some of the work we've done with some specific counties. Jefferson County there on the right, they were the first county that we worked with. We early last year created our request for proposals process in partnership with them. They have allocated and spent all of their 2023 money, and they have allocated all of their 2024 money. It's went to 7 programs, and it's also went to some county agencies, including the jail. We are working with them on some new EMS programming and increasing naloxone access points right now. So we're continuing there. Lewis County, they struggled a little bit in the beginning. They're a small county. The mayor was getting a lot of calls of people asking for the funds, and he did not feel confident that he had enough substance use experts in the county to put together his own board to oversee the spending of the money. So we fully operate their requests for proposals for them. They all have been allocated and spent last year and is allocated for this year as well. Tipton County, David Connor's on here if anybody has questions in regards to the counties. Tipton County, we traveled all the way out there a couple times, met with them. They have received several applications for funds. What we did with them is we switched them over to a more standardized application process so they could compare apples to apples. They created a new recovery court as well as funded some of the local organizations in the county. And now they're talking about doing a jail reentry and treatment program. So those are just a couple county highlights. If you want to continue, Mary. So what a partnership could look like. And of course, we talked through this with David and a little bit with Mary. I think part of it is, us really working closely with Mary's team to know what counties have not reported allocating or spending any funds, and then reaching out to those. So we really work very closely with those CTAS and MTAS consultants. That's why we have credibility to get in front of the elected officials. Up to now, we have not been reaching out to them individually and offering services. They have been coming to us asking for services. We can switch that and reach out to counties specifically if we need to. And then I think Mary suggested maybe Ella or somebody from the council come out and see what we do and visit some of the counties with us. Our funding, Mary wanted us to speak to that. Ending is, I guess it's kind of ending. We don't have our own funding. So for SMART to have their own funding as a line item in the University of Tennessee budget, that has to be approved through the state legislature. So we can't just divert money easily to a new initiative. Our funding is broken up from about 4 different sectors within UT: the President's Office, the Institute for Public Services, Admin Office, CTAS and MTAS, and then we do have some grant funding as well. All of those will end at different times. Our Office of Government Relations did approach the state legislature last year. They kind of felt out with the finance committee, hey, this is something the university wants to do. Do you think we could possibly get state appropriations? They said yes. They didn't have any problems with the proposal, but they said there's $1 billion of opioid settlement funding coming into the state. We feel like that should be an avenue for you to receive funding. So our plan was to seek funding this application cycle to continue on for 3 years and then approach the state again. So open for questions. Mary, was there anything else specific you wanted me to share?
Let me switch to the budget. Can you go over that just real briefly?
Sure. So the budget is salaries of the current staff that we have. Mary asked that I include any staff that we could really use to enhance our efforts, and so we did that. The funding years will change a little bit with the salaries and the benefits. All of our salaries are not at 100% on this budget. We have taken off any salary recovery with other grants. We also took off a portion because some of the work that we will do will not fall under the approved uses of opioid settlement funds, and just to make sure that we aren't using any funds for anything outside of the remediation uses. The 3 vacant parts, we really feel like we need someone to help us help counties use local data appropriately and often. So we do have the TDH and the TDMH SAS data, which we use all the time. But to get them to use their own data, whether that be medical examiner data, school data, EMS and law enforcement data, but use that data to really guide decisions and identify strategies that are of highest priority. And then we also really feel like we need a research and evaluation specialist. We do develop reporting templates for any county that gives funds out to agencies, just like you do with your grantees, so that they can review outcomes. However, it's not formal program evaluation, and we feel strongly that if we can evaluate formally some of those programs, we could suggest better what to replicate across the state to other counties. And then having a program specialist that would be able to create toolkits for programs that we find to be successful to, again, easily replicate those in other counties. So those are our additional asks that we would like. But of course, the top 6 people there with the staff and benefits is us. And then we do have travel. We do a lot of travel. We try and go to the opioid settlement board meetings at the local level. We attend and present at many conferences, all of the county and city association conferences. Part of that contractual services, that is for program evaluation. We have held regional workshops and plan to do that annually, where we invite all the counties in a region to come together, talk about what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, and just kind of be peers there for each other. Our total indirect cost rate is down there. It is 28.3%. I do appreciate you guys talking about indirect cost rate. If you are working on establishing a limit, then we can, of course, change that if we go into contract negotiations with Mary. We did briefly discuss it and had settled on possibly the state interdepartmental rate is 15%, and we had thrown that around. So we can try to change that, but we would need in writing something that says the OAC is limiting the indirect cost rate.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. So this is all information that we have pulled together on a slide. We're looking at what can we do to increase the spending by the counties of the dollars that we're sending out to them every year. And while the law doesn't say that we're, supposed to send the money out every year, that is the cadence that we have created along with the Attorney General's office. Like, okay, the money's coming in, we need to get the money out. And that's, I'm following the direction from the council, following the advice from the Attorney General's office on how to get the money out the door. So we're looking at reversions of funds, extension to allocate and spend, and education and consulting. I put this on this slide because they all kind of fit together. Nothing really stands alone. So reversion of funds, needing to develop and implement a process. If the counties do not want an extension, then the funds will revert. If the counties do not allocate or spend by the end of the extension, then the funds will revert, and the council will decide the best use of the reverted funds. Extension to allocate and spend, again, develop and implement a process, offer an option for counties to ask for an extension. If counties receive an extension, must report on progress in the semi-annual reports and potentially request assistance from the SMART initiative. Of course, the extension could potentially be time limited. And then education and consulting, contract with the SMART initiative. If the counties request an extension, then they may receive the education and consulting. SMART will report on progress, and then we can review a need for continuation of the contract after the 2 years. So I'm seeing this kind of as a interdependent. The counties are having a hard time spending the money. What can we do to help them? If they're not able to spend the money, we've got the teeth in the letter of agreement. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Mary. And we've been on here for over 2 hours. I appreciate Jennifer coming tonight and laying this out. This is a huge issue. Counties are I'll boil it down for you. Counties sit on money because they don't know what to do with it, and they need some help doing it. And there's a lot of people out there that are circling that are willing to come in and charge them a lot of money to tell them how to do with it. And we have something here in Tennessee that we can take advantage of. I think that will help our counties allocate this money and spend it how it needs to be spent. With that said, we've been going at it for well over 2 hours now. I think everybody on this call is beat, and I'm not sure right now is the time to address this. But I will recognize Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore.
About that, I thought you could read lips. As Mayor Franklin, we engage frequently with MTAS, and they're a very reputable outfit with great expertise. So I think this is a good approach. I think there needs to be some negotiation on some of the costs that they've listed. Particularly the indirect cost, but I would move a motion that we proceed forward with creating a reversion process for county funding, create an extension process, and Mary took it off so I couldn't continue to read, and allow the executive director to engage in contracting negotiations or execute a contract with SMART initiative for at least 2 years to assist counties with allocating and spending.
All right. Mary, did you get that motion?
Yeah, it sounds like the motion is exactly what I have here on the slide. Is that right, Ken?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I was
All right.
taking it off so I could start typing, but then you were just reading. Okay, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I've got a motion on the floor. I know people are already starting to raise their hands, so hang on a second. Do I have a second?
I will second.
I'm not sure who that
That's
was.
Sexton. Sexton.
I'm sorry, who? Oh, I'm sorry, Shane. I apologize, Shane. A second by Judge Sexton. Okay, now I'll open the floor for discussion. I have multiple people who have raised their hand, and I will try to go in the best order I can. Karen Pershing was first. Karen?
Yeah, I just want to mention to everyone that am a founding member of the advisory board for the Smart Policy Initiative. So I'm very familiar with the work that they do. Because of, and I have full confidence, but because of my relationship with them, I will be abstaining from the vote.
Thanks, Karen, and I'll get to the next hand. I am the same way. I have every confidence in this. I love many things about it, but I will be abstaining from the vote as well for the exact same reason. Chair recognizes Tommy Farmer.
Well, I'm in a similar situation there as Karen and Dr. Lloyd as well. I've worked with the group from the very beginning, and I think the world of them. I would simply make one comment. I think in this, I do like the fact of the MTAS CTAS approach at advising or providing technical assistance. I think we would have to, and this is something that Karen would lean into there. I think we have to be very careful and differentiate between providing technical assistance to those counties and or providing advocacy, influencing their policies on how we want or how we think that they should be approaching the problem. And then I guess the other thing I would throw in there is this a question for the counties themselves? Because right now, under all of those programs, MTAS, CTAS would be contracting directly with the counties and not necessarily the opioid abatement. But I do recognize what you've got here is the fact that their funding is out. And I don't necessarily have a problem with the 2-year approach in getting them up and going until we can work into some process like that.
All right. Thanks, Tommy. Brian Buck.
So my question is in regards to how the cost would be covered. Would that be coming out of the portion that is allocated to the counties, or coming out of the funding that is out of community grants, or and it's more of an accounting type question of where those dollars would come from. And I ask specifically because it seems like the initiative would be primarily focused on helping the counties and consulting with the counties on opioid dollars.
Steve, do you want me to answer that?
Thanks, Brian. Yes, if you would, Mary, thank you.
Okay, and also I was making sure JP's on, and this is something, guys, we're going to talk about at the December 13th meeting. This would come out of the Opioid Abatement Trust Fund. And JP, can you just real briefly talk about administrative costs and Opioid Abatement Trust Fund?
Sure. Yes. So the way the Opioid Abatement Trust Fund is set up, it is allowed to pay administrative costs. Those are the costs of the salaries and any of the costs incurred by the council. That includes costs that go into investing the money that's being held there. The treasurer is doing that job. That's a minimal amount, but those amounts can be paid out of both income and corpus of the trust funds. So do you want more detail than that, Mary, or is that?
No, that's great. That's great.
Okay.
So just very similarly how we're paying SAS. So we're paying SAS out of the Opioid Abatement Trust Fund. Does that help, Brian?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian, I wanted to make sure that we answered your question. I think you just indicated that we did. I'm sorry, still trying to wheel through the hands being raised. Dr.
Stephanie
Vanterpool?
had her hand raised. Yeah, she had her hand raised for a while.
Yep, I got her.
It was the same question from Brian. I was curious to where the money was coming from. And also, thank you for answering. I was just curious if we could use some of the reclaimed money. I know that's not the right word, from the counties to fund this. So we're not using direct trust fund money that has not yet been allocated, number one. And number two, what is our current indirect cost percentage for the council, so we can be consistent with what we're asking other organizations to stay to, whether it's 15% or whatever.
Sure, and we were going to discuss that at the September 30th meeting, and we're going to discuss it at December 13th. But Melissa, real fast, are we like, tell what, I can't remember. Are we at 2%, 3%?
Yeah, we're at 3%.
So our admin, so that's salaries. I mean, that is 3%. But as far as our indirect, I don't know if we have a, I don't know, Melissa, if we have that our admin is 3. Is that helpful?
No.
And does that include SAS?
Yes, that does
Yes.
include SAS.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
okay.
Dr. Vanderpool. Dr. Fournette.
Yes, I guess I would just like to try to figure out why SMART isn't going straight to the counties directly, and instead of us paying for it out of the council funds.
Would you like Jennifer?
Yeah, Jennifer, you want to answer that?
Sure, I can answer it, and David Connor can also speak to this too, if you would like to hear from him. I think he's still on. Counties are having a lot of people ask them for money. And we do have credibility because we are with University of Tennessee and CTAS and MTAS. So people do have a tendency to trust us more, but they have a lot of people coming at them for these funds. And they are less likely to work with us if we're going to charge them a fee. The Institute for Public Service doesn't charge fees for consulting work for any of their consultants. So that would be very out of the typical model that they use. But we don't want that to be a barrier for people asking for assistance. David, would you want to add anything?
I think Jennifer said it well. It's I've had a lot of folks come to me saying that they're hearing from outside agencies that are like, hey, pay us $100,000 and we can come up with a plan on how to use your opioid money. And I'm like, don't spend your money on consultants to tell you how to put it to good use when these folks are out there doing it for free. That's the model, as she said, that the Institute for Public Service uses. I think for those counties that are moving the slowest, that would probably be more of a barrier if they had to then pay a consulting fee to work with these resources, unless the model right now is that they're available for free.
And I had this on a slide and I skipped over it and I apologize. There is no administrative cost or fee that's contemplated in the money that is going to the counties. So they're supposed to spend all the money that they're receiving on the Exhibit E, the remediation list. So that's what the council voted. They have to spend all that money, all the money they receive on the remediation list.
Thanks, Mary. And I think that's a great question, Dr. Fournette. Thank you. That last comment by Mary certainly cleared some things up for me. Thanks, David Connor, for hanging with us, and thanks for being here. Are there any other questions? Any other discussion? I think I've gotten all the hands, unless I see one go up, and I currently don't see one go up. I've got a motion on the floor that has been seconded. Discussion has been had. So, Mary, if you would proceed with a roll call vote.
Yes. Armando Fontes. And let me know if anybody has left. Okay. Brian Buck.
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Karen Pershing.
Abstain.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton. I am not seeing her on the list. Mike Flynn.
I saw it.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool.
Abstain.
Steve Lloyd.
Abstain.
Tim Fournette.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Abstain.
And Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes. All right, the motion carries. And we appreciate Jennifer Torville and Mr. Connor hanging in with us tonight. I appreciate that very much, guys. All right, Mary.
We're here at public comment.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm scared here. William J raised their hand, and I don't think that's
That was Clay.
anybody on our. Oh, okay. I thought he was WC. Okay. Clay, do you have something before we get to public comment?
I signed back in. Guys, I just realized I should abstain from this vote. I've done 2 podcasts with Smart Initiative. So I have a.
So thanks, Dr. Jackson. So if we could let the minutes show that Dr. Jackson recused himself, but thank you, Dr. Jackson. But the motion still carries. Does it change the outcome?
I apologize. I just want to avoid conflict of interest appearance.
I got it.
Understand, brother. All right. We reached our public comment section. We have a time set aside for public comment. We ask you to make your comment. This is not a question and answer session, but if you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. And Mary, I can't see any of these, so I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I don't see any hands raised. And my staff, if you see something, let me know. I do not see any hands raised.
All right. All right, guys, we are 2 hours and 22 minutes deep. I am sorry about that. We did the best we could tonight. I appreciate your patience. I know it's a long Monday. Our next council meeting will be December 13th, 2024. And the wonderful Dr. Mayor Ken Moore is loaning us Franklin City Hall. And Dr. Moore, we certainly appreciate that and look forward to coming out to Franklin. My favorite time of the meeting, a time for adjournment. I'll need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I got a motion and a seconded by Clay and Tim Fournette. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mary, please proceed with a roll call vote.
Armando Fontes, Brian Buck.
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Karen Pershing.
Yes.
Ken Moore. Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool.
Yes.
Steve Lloyd.
Yes.
Tim Fournette.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
It's past my bedtime, so yes.
All right. Well, have a good night, Wayne. And motion carries, guys. Thank you all for hanging in. We'll see you all in December. Thank you for your hard work. Good night.